This is going to be my most vulnerable, personal story yet. I am nervous. I am excited. But more than anything, I feel liberated to share this story with so many of you. I have my tissues. I have my notes. Yes, I have notes. Let's get started. All right, let's talk about it. We're here. I'm about to share my menopause story, my menopause journey, where it started and where I am right now. But let me start with a few disclaimers. I am not a medical professional. If you are feeling any of the symptoms that I mentioned, if you think you're going through any kind of menopause phase, I encourage you to reach out to your medical professional and seek professional help. But let me share with you my journey. And this is my story from my lens, from my perspective, based on my symptoms and my lifestyle. But before I get into all of it, I need to ask of you a few things. Please be kind, please be respectful, and please give us all some grace. Again, this is my personal story. It's very vulnerable, but it's one that has to be told because I feel it in my heart that I know that this message is going to resonate. And how do I know that? Because when I posted my poll of what type of topics you would like for me to cover, peri and post-menopause came in at a resounding 89% of you that said that this is what you want. This is the topic that you want to be discussed. And I'm here to share my story. I'm here to share my journey. Very high level, but I wanted to share it with you. And for the first time in any of my videos, I had to do some homework and I wrote down, I had to type notes because listen, this is intense. Menopause is real. Menopause is serious. And I'm also here to tell you that this is a third of our lives. We spend a third of our lives as women in in post-menopause. And as a 55-year-old, a proud 55-year-old post-menopausal woman, I am feeling my best. I am my most vibrant. I have the most energy. I feel the most comfortable in my own skin, in my own body, and in my own thoughts. This, to me, has been the best that I have ever felt in my adult life. And I say that with full confidence. You know, there are people that say, I would do anything to go back to 30s and 40s. And I say, oh, hell no. Nope. I do not want to go back to that. And you know why? Because I was miserable. I was miserable in my body. I didn't even know who I was. I felt as though I went to sleep and woke up and aliens had taken over. I had no idea who I was. That's part of the symptoms, right? It's part of one of the long list of symptoms that I wrote down that is very common in these phases. So I don't want to get into a lot of details about menopause and the science, but I do need to share with you just a few things to keep this whole conversation in context. And that is that menopause, the word menopause is really just one day. So the menopause is the day in which you've realized that it's been 12 consecutive months that you have not had your period. So it's your menopause. The process or the stage before that, the phase before that is called perimenopause, which is one of the longest phases. And then the phase after that is postmenopause, which is the phase that I am in. But perimenopause is scary. And now we're learning more, and I applaud physicians and specialists and experts in this space like Dr. Mary Claire Haver, Dr. Kelly Casperson, Dr. Mindy Pelz, right? These are people that are in this space that are making a lot of noise, that are really educating women around the globe, that are really making menopause a priority in terms of conversation at the kitchen table, conversations amongst friends, all the things, because it is an important and inevitable part of our lives. 100% of women will go through postmenopause. If you can make it to the postmenopause age, which I am so grateful and thankful and blessed to have made it here, you will go through postmenopause. It is a natural segue. It is a natural progress in our lives. And we should not be ashamed of it. We should not be ashamed of it. We should not be embarrassed of it. And we should not let society make us feel like we are less than, that we've lost something, that we are not adequate. We are insufficient when we are in postmenopause. Don't believe the stories of Hollywood, right? You know, the world is not created to support and encourage and uplift women. That's what we're here for. We need to do that ourselves. That's the space that we need to take up in this world, is lifting each other up and educating each other. And before I get into it, I am not a medical professional. So seek professional medical advice. This video is intended for educational and informative purposes. This is my story. This is my journey, and I want to share it with you. So one of the moments when I started to sit down and take some notes, I had to really think, like, when in the heck did I really start perimenopause? So back in December of 2009, I had been in a new role. I had gotten a promotion. I had been in a new role for several months. And this was my first big project that I had, right? I was traveling, but this was part of year end, and it made a big impact in the business. And so it was a very important role and an important task that I had on, that literally I was responsible for 100% this particular weekend. It was in the dead of winter. Flight was delayed due to weather. We were in single digits. It was freezing, both where I was leaving from and in the Midwest where I was traveling to our distribution center. Freezing cold. Flight is delayed, which means I can't go directly to the hotel once I land. I get the rental car. I go straight to our distribution center. We spend the entire day there. We then have a little bit of a gap in time before dinner with our vendors. So I go back to the hotel. As I'm taking the things out of the hotel, my clothes are literally stuck together because they're so cold. My gel, my shower gel, my lotion, all the liquids had almost frozen. They had become crystallized. It was so cold. My luggage was in my trunk all day. So there's that. And it was frozen. So I needed to get that out. I was able to change my clothes. It was freezing cold. I was able to change, and then I went to dinner where, this was the time where I used to drink, and I was still eating meat. And so we ate and we drank all the things. I went back to the hotel. I took a shower. I changed into my pajamas and I went to bed. I was prepared. I had everything set up. Perfect. I thought, nailed it. Was going to wake up at 5 a.m. the next morning, start my morning, have breakfast, and go straight to the distribution center because we had a 7 a.m. start. At 4 a.m., I woke up in a panic because I thought I had overslept. And then I quickly realized, wait a second, something doesn't feel right. And I felt my pants wet. And I thought, oh my goodness, did I drink too much that I peed on myself? What in the heck? Because not only were my pants wet, my shirt was wet, the pillowcase, the blanket, the sheets. It was disgusting. I had no idea what was happening. None at all. I freaked out a little bit, but I couldn't stay in that mental freak out state because I had a long day. I had a long weekend ahead of me, and I needed to get my shit together. I needed to get myself together. I went and took a shower. I got dressed, but the whole day I'm thinking, what is happening? So I now know today that moment, because that was the start of, to me, what everything went spiraling downward from that point on in terms of symptoms, that I could remember as far back that was the first day that I had gone through perimenopause. That's when it started for me. And perimenopause can start anywhere. I think it's between the ages. And again, I'll do another video on these, medical statistics, but I think it's anywhere between the age of 35 and maybe 49, 50. And then, postmenopause is after 50. So I thought, okay, this is perimenopause, but this is information that I'm sharing with you right now that I know today. At 39 years old, I didn't know that. I had no idea what was happening to me. But I do remember that I came back and I went to go see my doctor because the symptoms had now started to really creep up. I had started to develop some inflammation in my belly area. My pants weren't fitting me properly. I had started to, suffer from some joint pain in different areas. My knee, my ankle, my lower back started to bother me. the biggest eye opener for me was heart palpitations. I started to develop really bad heart palpitations. Had no idea. So that was in 2009. And I went to go see my doctor and followed up. Now, as part of my research to do my own journey, to bring you my own information, I had to go back into my own medical history and see what the trajectory, like what was the timeline of my symptoms. There are little gaps in my medical history that's not available to me through my portal. And so I can only bring to you what I could see. But my memory is also very vivid of that time frame in my life. So remember, that was in 2009. I turned 40 the following year, and I don't have any medical history of when I was 40, but I do remember my 40th birthday party, and my husband gave me a surprise birthday party, and we had a great time. But that year was hard. And I thought, is it because I'm 40? Oh my goodness, am I getting there? Like, is this what people are talking about? My vision started to get funky. My mood started to swing. It was just a complete mess. I was highly emotional. I just did not enjoy my 40th year. I remember being 40 and just saying, oh, this is what people are talking about. Oh, I don't like being 40s. I don't like being in my 40s. And then in 2011, when I turned 41, and because this is in my notes here, in November of that year, because it had just been so hard. My year of me being 40 was difficult. And then I turned 41 and I was still having a lot of symptoms. So some of the symptoms that I had suffered, let me go through the list, the laundry list. And this is just some of the things that I could think of off the top of my head. So as I go through this list, I want you to think about your own symptoms. So depending on your age and the time in which you're listening to this, maybe you can do some reflective work as to when you were in your 30s and 40s. If you're in your 50s now, or if you're currently in your 30s and 40s, please pay close attention to some of these symptoms, because the truth is, and I mentioned these doctors earlier, and I encourage you to watch their podcasts, and I encourage you to listen to them on YouTube. They're on a ton of different podcasts. Dr. Mary Claire Haver, Dr. Mindy Pelz, Dr. Kelly Casperson, and they will also repeat a lot of these symptoms. But there are a lot of women are overly medicated and misdiagnosed on a daily basis. Those aren't my words. Those are their words. So remember this when we're going through this list. So here are some of the symptoms that I've had in perimenopause, and even at the early onset of post-menopause. A lot of these I no longer have, thank God, but let's go through them. High cholesterol, high triglycerides, heart palpitations, ringing in my ears, no interest in sex, low libido, belly bloat, inflammation, unexplained weight gain, swelling in extremities, hair loss, big one, dull, dry skin, constantly tired, zero energy, depression, anxiety, numbness in my leg, shooting pains, flank pain, dry eyes, elbow, hip, and lower back pain, sleep or lack thereof, confusion, brain fog, forgetting things mid-sentence, unable to focus, no interest to want to go outside, be around people, or socialize, intrusive thoughts when trying to fall asleep, like just revisiting your last 30 years of your life as you're trying to close your eyes at 2 o'clock in the morning. Exercise no longer works, acne, melasma. There are quite a few more, but I couldn't remember all of them. But these are just some of the symptoms that I had. So when you're having these symptoms and they're coming to you, they're flooding your body and your mind on a daily basis, weekly basis, it's very normal for you to feel confused and for you to feel scared and frustrated and annoyed because you get dressed up to go to work, you're on driving to work, and then you get there and you feel like your pants are wet, you feel like the back of your shirt is soaking wet. It's annoying and it's embarrassing and frustrating. We know this. So, and for me, my personal story also is that my father suffered of spontaneous brain hemorrhage 2 years before he was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. So every time I had pelvic pain or joint pain or a headache, a migraine, I was confused or I would forget what the hell I was saying. I thought I had a brain tumor. I thought I had a brain hemorrhage, an aneurysm. I thought I had cancer. Every time I made an appointment, I braced myself for the worst news. But in hindsight, when I think about it, and this may be not so great to say, and it may be an extreme, but I almost wished it was something, because every time I went through the grace and the blessing of God, it wasn't anything, but I was searching for answers and I was not getting them. I so desperately wanted an answer, and I didn't even care if it was the extreme of what that could be. But time and time again, I had no answers. But there's a fact, and there's some information that we need to know as to the why. And the first one is that the medical system, and these aren't my words, these are the words of the providers, of the specialists that I just mentioned. Our medical system is not created to help us heal. It's actually created to keep us sick. That is a fact, unfortunately. Another key factor in this is that medical professionals, when they're in med school, and again, this is coming from professionals and experts in this area, they only get 1 hour of women's health care as part of their overall medical schooling. And if you go into the women's health space as your profession, right? So if you're going to go into a specialty like OBGYN, urology, women's cancers, you get 6 hours of lecture on menopause. Or I should say, the stage post childbearing. That is a fact. I will bring more of this information to you as I create the videos for this series. I don't want to get into the details of that right now, but I wanted to share a couple of those highlights because it's important for us to have a framework and an idea of what we're dealing with when we go to visit our professionals. And I love my doctor. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely adore her. But I also respect that she's limited, right? She's limited in how she was trained. And although she has an extensive medical training that I don't have, but it's limited in the sense of what I need at this phase in my life right now. They also have pressures from their institutions, from the higher ups in their institutions. They look at their schedule for that day and they have 60 patients that they need to see between the hours of 8 and 4:30. That means they have 15 minutes to see each patient. They have a 30-minute lunch. We're also sending inquiries through our patient portals. We're calling, we're leaving messages. Some patients are in the hospital, right? There's all these other factors that are taking place. And so they spend 15 minutes with us and they try to be as focused and as engrossed and focused on what we're telling them. But their space and their capacity is for us to tell them our symptoms and for them to treat our symptoms. It's not for them to look for the root cause. That is the reality. They are trained to treat the symptom. And we need to know this when we're going in. So this is not a knockoff or any kind of insult or me trying to downgrade or discredit my doctor, because I absolutely love her. But I also understand. I also want to say that all these symptoms that I mentioned, most of my life, I had thin privilege. And what does that mean? That means that I never had to worry about weight. So when I started to gain weight and I didn't understand and I wasn't overeating, because I'm not one to eat dessert anyway, I will most often skip dessert. It's just not something that I like. I'm not a junk food eater. Now, can I open a bag of chips and finish it? Yes, absolutely. But that wasn't a daily thing for me. So when I started to develop this unexplained weight gain, especially in my abdomen, I thought, whoa, so time out. What is happening here? This isn't normal. What is happening to my body? Who am I? Who am I was my bigger question. And while some of you may say, oh, thin privilege, I wish I had that privilege, or I wish I was that person. Again, I started with this video by saying, let's be kind, let's be respectful, right? As hard as it is for some folks to lose weight, I was in that category. It was very difficult for me to gain weight. I had a lot of medical professionals growing up that thought that I was anorexic or bulimic, that I had some kind of eating disorder, because I was so underweight. I was so underweight that it was scary. Okay. So it's not a laughing matter. It's not something that, and while society tells us that we should all be thin, I don't believe that either. Right? Because what I know now is that in my 30s and 40s, while I was thin, I was skinny fat is what I was. And I'm going to share the reasons why I say that in a minute. But I was truly the epitome of skinny fat. On the outside, I looked thin and healthy, but on the inside, I was literally corroding. Mentally, I was deteriorating. And a lot of it had to do with me being in perimenopause. And no matter how many times I went to the doctor, no matter how many times I went and had a physical, or every ailment that I had, I would go and get checked because I am religious that way, I still never had an answer, and I still didn't know what was happening. And so from the age of 39, I still had all these symptoms. I was afraid that I was dying most often. Most of the time that I would schedule these appointments, I really thought that I was dying. Of either colon cancer, a heart attack, right? You name it. I thought I was dying. Here is my medical records that I actually printed. So this is everything that I printed off of my my portal. It's very thick. These are just some of the pages, by the way. It was 104 pages. So here's something that I do, and I want to put in this plug out there. So if you're one that only goes to see your doctor, let's say once a year, or you don't like doctors, you go to them, they tell you to get blood work done, you leave the office and you don't get any blood work done. That's dangerous, especially for women in postmenopause. But let me take this a little bit further. So for me, what I do is, and my husband does this, my daughters do it. Before you actually go to go see your doctor, as you schedule it, you should send if your doctor has a patient portal, go through the portal, send them a request for them to provide you with the script for a full panel blood work. And you go get that blood work done prior to your appointment, because then when you go there, you have a more substantive conversation. You can actually talk about the results, and then go, if you need something more extensive, you can then follow up and get that additional blood work. But at least you have a baseline, you have something very concrete to discuss, and you have more information available to you when you get your blood work done before your actual appointment. Just remember that blood work is just a range. It is a guide. It is not the end all be all. All right. So when I turned 41, so when I turned 40, I already shared with you, I thought, oh, have I become this person? I don't like being 40. And then when I turned 41, it was even harder because my symptoms started to really, really progress. They started to become very evident. It was very obvious in my mood, in my physical look, I was just not happy. I had a beautiful marriage, a beautiful family, a beautiful home, but I wasn't happy with what I saw in the mirror and how I felt. It was awful. Okay. So in November of my 41st birthday, my 41st birthday year, I had the palpitations really got worse. I went and got an echocardiogram, and they put me on a heart monitor. And then they did a stress test, an exercise stress test, all of which came back normal. I suffer from low blood pressure. They thought that could have been what was causing my palpitations, but it turns out it wasn't. Low blood pressure, they told me increase my salt in my food, yada. Okay. Still no answer. And then, every year, 2014, 2015, 2016, and even 2017, what they noticed, and something that I heard at every physical, was my cholesterol from literally 1 year to the next skyrocketed. Nothing had changed. My diet had not changed. My routines had not changed. Was I stressed? Yes, I'm alive. I was stressed. Did I have a demanding job? Yes. Did I have a demanding home life? Yes. Excuse me. My kids were teenagers. They were applying for colleges, right? Life was just busy and moving. But it was normal in my book. It was nothing different. It was just a different phase in my life. My kids were at a different stage, and you pivot and you adjust. But every time I had my blood work done, my triglycerides were high, my cholesterol was high. No real talk about it outside of reduce red meat, exercise more, calories in, calories out, do more cardio, eat less red meat, drink less red wine, drink less, right? The normal, typical conversations or topics. And we didn't even have a conversation about it. It was more suggestions that they provided Fine. And then in 2018, I went in January of 2018 because I wrote it down and here it is in bold. I remember my doctor sitting at the end of that bed and she says to me, listen, I don't know how to, and remember, I'm getting my blood work done before I go to see them. And these are all fasting blood work panels. And she said, listen, she came in with a really serious face, something I had not seen before. And she says, hi. And I asked her, doctor, what, is everything okay? You don't seem like yourself. She said, I don't know how to tell you this. I don't know how to tell you this. I don't know what's happened and I don't have any answers. But your triglycerides are so high that you are at risk of having a heart attack. I thought, what? Here I am suffering from low blood pressure, right? Low iron. What do you mean I'm going to have a heart attack? She said, listen, your triglycerides are at 305. They are more than double the highest range, the highest point in the range, because the highest point in the range is 149. So I was a little bit more than double that. She says, we need to deal with this right away. We could barely get through any of the other things on my blood panel because she was obsessed with these triglycerides, rightfully so. So we treated it aggressively and I went back to see her in April and my triglycerides had come down from 305 down to 182, which is still high, but considerably lower than what it was. I had stopped drinking red wine. I wasn't really eating red meat. So I don't even know how that would play in. I was training for a 5K. So I started to walk and run more. So I was exercising, moving my body more. And I went in really hard and heavy because that May of 2018 was a 5K. So in April, my triglycerides were down, but my cholesterol was still high. And then she was also concerned with something she saw in the blood work. So she wanted me to go have a DEXA scan. The DEXA scan, the results came back that I was pre-osteoporosis, and she wanted me to possibly do some stretching, drink more, or eat more calcium, but I don't eat dairy, right? It became this whole conversation. But then all of a sudden, my bone density became an issue. Still high cholesterol, still high triglycerides. That went on for another year or so. And then here I am at 49 years old. I had to get another echocardiogram. I had to get another stress test because my heart palpitations at this point had become unbearable. Still, from 2012 actually, to 2019, at no point in time did my doctor ever mention perimenopause. The topic did not even come up. And then it continued. I had an echo with contrast. I had an ultrasound of my heart. I had all these tests done. Negative. Everything was negative for what they were looking for. I should have felt better, but I didn't because I didn't have answers. Then in 2022, here was I think what started my turning point. Now, mind you, in April of 2021, I had stopped eating meat because my brother was diagnosed with stage 3 rectal cancer. And that was all that I needed to see. That was all that I needed to hear. I stopped eating meat cold turkey. I had already stopped drinking in 2018. So that was not an issue for me, but I had stopped drinking. So it had been, at this point now, it's been a year and a half since I have, cut out meat. In 2022, this was one of those moments, another pivotal moment for me. The loss of hair became really scary. My husband saw the amount of hair that was in the garbage in the bathroom, and he also became concerned because the hair, as I washed my hair and I would go like this, the hair would literally wrap around my elbow because I had really long hair, but they were chunks. So you can tell they was coming out from the root, and they were chunks of hair that were coming out. Could I afford to lose some hair? Yes, I have very thick hair, but that didn't make it normal. It doesn't make it okay. So I had this extensive amount of loss of hair, and it was all very scary, and I had no idea what was happening here. So that was one of my later pivotal points. Here's another emotional point for me, and it was actually in January of 2017. We had planned a trip with another couple to go to the Caribbean, and I needed to buy a bathing suit because I had gained so much weight. I didn't have a bathing suit that fit. And so I told my husband, we need to go buy shorts and a bathing suit because none of my shorts fit me. None of my, like, nothing fit me for the summer. And now it's the dead of winter. So I'm buying summer clothes. I'm not feeling my best. I have gained a considerable amount of weight and I have no idea what to even look for. And when I talked a little bit about thin privilege earlier, and while some of you may roll your eyes and say, well, that's a problem I would love to have, it is still a problem. And I don't want to negate, right? This is all part of building a community, making everyone feel seen and heard. So let's not, poo poo people's stories or their current situations, because this is everyone has their own story. And this one is mine. It was the first time that I ever had to buy a full body bathing suit in my entire life. Not even as a child did my mother ever put me in a full body bathing suit. She always put me in bikinis. Now here I am, a 47-year-old grown behind woman that I should feel confident and comfortable, and I am not. I'm feeling the worst I have ever felt in my life. And I now have to buy a full body bathing suit. I have to buy these muumuu shorts, these muumuu shirts that were just flowing and nothing constricting, nothing form fitting, because I couldn't figure out how to get rid of my belly bloat. I couldn't figure out how to get rid of this visceral fat that came over me, that took over my body. I could not get over the inflammation in my hands and the inflammation and the swelling in my ankles and all over my body. It was just uncomfortable and I had no answers. We went into the fitting room. It was at night and we were at Macy's. And I went into the fitting room. I had like 8 bathing suits. My husband had picked out some 2 pieces. The only thing I picked out were 1 pieces. And he's like, babe, put on the 2 pieces first. Let me see them on you. He loves to shop. And he's so supportive. So I go and I try them on and I am beside myself. It was probably one of the first times of many that I cried. But it wasn't a cry of frustration. It was a cry of shame and embarrassment because I had never, ever felt this before. And he looked at me. He was like, oh, I like that one. And I thought, what? It would barely fit me. And I refused to go into the larger size. It was a moment. And I remember him holding me and telling me it was all going to be okay, that he still loved me. My husband's fantastic. But I'm like, oh, I know better. Okay? I know better. And I don't like it. So I'm not buying a 2-piece. But it was a moment. And I cried. I cried at dinner that night. Again, I became an emotional, sobbing hot mess. That was another pivotal moment for me. And then the other one was the hair loss. And after that, I finally said, you know what? I'm done with this crap. I started to do my own research. I really started to dig deeper. And all this time, my triglycerides, my cholesterol is still high. My weight is still going up. I have unexplained weight gain. I still don't have answers. I still have all these symptoms. And finally, I started to go down the postmenopausal rabbit hole. And in August of 2024, I found the doctor of my dreams. Because it wasn't until October of 2022, it was November 30th, as I'm reading my notes, November 30th of 2022, I started having the conversation with the doctor I had at that time about menopause and about my hormone panel. And we did have a hormone panel check, and the TSH and all that came within range, but my symptoms were not matching what my hormone panels were saying. So that was dismissed. And when I talked to that doctor at the time, that GYN at the time, she said, well, I'm not, I wouldn't encourage you to go on HRT. That would be probably my last resort. Let's try some more homeopathic methods. She was very passive aggressive in terms of my GYN at the time, very passive aggressive about putting me on HRT. She had a lot of reservations, and it's because of that Women's Health Initiative, or as I say, the Women's Death Initiative. I will do a whole video on that because we need to know about what is causing the hysteria and the negative response to hormone replacement therapy. I don't want to digress. So I realized, wait a minute, but if I'm asking for it, you should give it to me, right? You're the professional. It's your job to go learn more about it and encourage me or tell me why I shouldn't take something. But anyway, um, needless to say, I no longer see that GYN. I went on a hunt to educate myself about hormone replacement therapy, about postmenopause, about my symptoms. That's how I found Dr. Mary Claire Haber, Dr. Mindy Pelz, Dr. Kelly Casperson. That's how I found them, because I started to listen to podcasts. I started to go down this deep rabbit hole. And the more information I heard, the more of the symptoms that I heard, I went, that's me. Oh my God, that's me. That's me. That's me. That was me. That was me. What? And I searched high and low. I checked reviews. I really started to pray hard about finding the right menopause doctor and or a GYN for me. And I scheduled 3 different appointments. She was the last of my 3. And when I tell you that for the first time in 16 years since my first symptom, because it is now August of 2024. Remember, my first symptom was December of 2009. So it was 4 months shy of 16 years that I had been having symptoms, and I had been pushing to get answers. And for the first time, this doctor sat across from me, spent 45 minutes with me, and listened. She not only listened to me, she heard me. And the way that I am about to tell you how that was proven to me was because I asked her, we haven't talked about getting a hormone panel check, a hormone blood work done. Do you think I need to get that? Are you going to give me a script for that? And she goes, no, I'm treating your symptoms. That blood work is not going to tell me what you're telling me. And your symptoms are real. They are true to you. They are what you're going through. And my job as a professional is to treat your symptoms to help you feel better. You need to sleep. You need to feel normal. You need to feel like a whole woman again. So that's what we're going to do. I thought, what? This moment, that moment with her solidified everything that I had been hearing, everything that I had been learning. And I finally, after going to see so many specialists and so many appointments and so many freaking copays, I finally had someone that heard me and saw me. And that's what I want for you. That is what I want for you. I want you to find the person that will hear you and see you and treat you like a human, not make you feel like you're going crazy, not make you feel as though you're losing your mind, not over medicate you, not over diagnose you, not make you go through all these unnecessary tests. I want you to find that doctor, and you will. You're going to go through a few, but it should take no one 16 years to get the answers that I got in 45 minutes. She gave me the time and the space to cry, to feel frustrated, to express my frustration, all of it. And you know what she said to me? She said, Lisette, on behalf of every doctor that you have seen, I want to apologize. I want to apologize for us not listening. It was a moment that changed me forever. So since August of 2024, I have been on hormone replacement therapy. I no longer have broken sleep. I don't have night sweats. I don't have, I forgot to add those to my list. No night sweats, no hot flashes. I'm able to process my thought. I have more confidence. I am comfortable in my body. My belly bloat is going away. My inflammation is almost gone, right? My heart palpitations are non-existent. My joint pain, non-existent. All those, almost every single symptom that I read off to you earlier is just about gone. And I started hormone replacement therapy. I'm on estradiol. I started with 0.5. I've recently been graduated up to 0.75 and I am on a progesterone because I still have a uterus. And again, you can get all this information from your medical professional, but I am so happy that I said yes to regaining my life by saying yes to HRT. And I'm not encouraging, HRT is not for everyone, but I don't want us to be in a space where it is not recommended. We are entitled to be suggested alternatives to make us feel better, and not have someone put their hand on our knee and say it's going to be okay. It's just a part of life. That is not okay. That is not acceptable. And if your doctor does that to you, it's time to find someone else. So let's build a community. Let's talk about it. Let's make this a conversation at the kitchen table. Let's make this a conversation at girls' night out. Let's talk about this and make it normal. It is normal. It's part of our lives. It's who we are. And that's okay. So I hope that this message and this video has given you confidence. I hope that it lifts your spirits. I hope that it makes you feel seen, heard, and normal. You are not going crazy. You are not losing your mind. You are not alone. Let's build this community. Let's engage. Let's conversate in the comments. Let's support each other. If anyone has for any recommendations, or just tell us your story if you feel so inclined, because there are more of us going through this than there are not. So let's continue to support each other. This is the first of a few videos in this series. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope that you have taken something away from my own personal story. What I don't want for you is to wait 16 years for you to get your answers, because no one should have to wait that long. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to hit like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, because that's how we stay connected. That's what keeps me motivated and keeps me encouraged. But thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And until the next one, adios.